moment. You must adapt the story to the circumstances around you, the environment, and of course, what's going on, and without saying the audience. And the last one is you must address the mission. And in this case, the mission it does sound like a rather military term, but he uses it. It is the thing, the goal, the thing that you want to accomplish by the story. The story must have a reason. There's some reason why you are attempting to impress this story upon your audiences. There's something you want to achieve with that. Okay? Now, formulating the story. Part of your exercise here will be to formulate a story. The story will take about 2 minutes, and you tell it. Right? Now, I'm going to give you an example of a story, and I'm going to use myself in a very personal way. First of all, the purpose of these stories is always to communicate some lesson, some insight into something. Okay? And here, I'll start by saying, I'll start with the insight and the lesson learned first. Be careful. You have to be careful. Be cautious of group thinking and group behavior, or the actions of people in a group. You must be. Now, a lot of you hear that story and you go, nah, so what? The purpose of the story is to reinforce that lesson. And if you can do it in a real and convincing way, it impresses the audience in the memory. They remember the story, and therefore they remember the lesson almost. And it reinforces that. And I will take this from my own childhood. I'm going to take you back to March of 1962. I know it was March because in my hometown, which has a subtropical climate, the cherry trees bloom in March. It sounds early, but they bloom in March, and the weather starts getting nice. I was in school. I was a student. I was kind of, I was a strange kid. I remember the yard. It was the afternoon, and it had been sunny, and the cloud that morning, but the clouds were starting to come in, and it was becoming gray, a little bit gray, overcast. In our school, there was a young boy named Rene, and Rene was a special needs child. And he was my age, and he had physical and intellectual or cognitive disabilities, and speech impediments, a number of things problematic. By no means was he unintelligent. He was quite bright. But he was the object of ridicule and teasing, because children could be cruel. I know this because they were cruel with me because I was weird. The difference was, unlike Rene, I had a sharp tongue, and I could come back and embarrass people with my words. So I knew that it was like a weapon. Okay? But I had sympathy for Rene. It was the afternoon, and I'm just standing by myself in the playground, and I hear this commotion, and I go over, and I find that Rene is surrounded by boys and girls, some of our classmates. And he is in the middle of a circle, and they're teasing and taunting him. He's in the middle of the circle, surrounded by children. And he tried to break out of the circle, and they pushed him back inside the circle. And I watched him. I was watching this. And at some point, he fell down and he began to weep and cry. He began to cry. And he curled himself into a prenatal position, just like a child. He just curled himself up like that on the ground, shaking, weeping. And then two teachers who had seen that came across the schoolyard, and the children ran. And when they picked Rene up, he was still weeping inside himself, shaking as they picked him up. And so two teachers actually had to pick him up and take him to the office. And so I'm standing there in the yard, and I remember thinking as a young child, make a note. You must be suspicious of the decisions and the actions and the thinking of people in groups. That was my lesson. I said, okay. Now, how does this matter? Well, for one thing, when I was your age, 14 to 16, it kept me out of trouble. Because, you know, I'm sure you've been sitting with your friends. Hey, you know what we ought to do tonight? And it sometimes goes down from there, especially if drugs or alcohol is involved. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But even as a grown man now, and in the military it served me very well, also in academia, when I'm sitting with a group of people and we're having these discussions, I am without question always the one who says, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we don't understand this. Because and in that moment, I'm going back to that schoolyard as a young boy. I'm reliving that all over again. But that's the lesson. And the lesson, I must say, has served me well. Okay? And again, part of it is that something that you learn, you gain insight, you discover. Right? What I want you to do, the first part of this, and you can use this as a sort of as a template sheet. Think of an event, an experience, a moment, and then think about what you derived from it. What did you get out of it? What did you learn? But the first thing I want you to do as you go through your mind is I want you to do this in your native language. The language you dream in. What's that? Language you dream in. That's the language of your soul. If you start with English, it's not the same. If I start with a foreign tongue, I immediately am limited to the expression of my vocabulary. Okay, so start with your dream language or dream languages. It doesn't necessarily have to be your nationality. So if you dream in one language and you're from somewhere else, that's fine. I was just telling the last class a story about a gal I work with, a good friend of mine. She dreams in 6 languages. It's obscene. She dreams in Mandarin, Chinese, Chinese, Cantonese, Japanese, Korean, Tagalog, and English. She does not dream in Spanish and French, although she knows those languages. Okay. She's basically an Asian person who's lived in Asia. And she's actually grown up in these different speech environments, so that's how she has those languages.
And in Golos we have the ability to develop sea sports, therefore I'm a sea scout. At the end of every camp we go to a sea journey, as we call it. It was about 3 years ago when I wasn't so experienced. We had to prepare and equip the boats we would use. There were 2 boats, so we divided into teams. 4 people who was considered the most expertise in that factor decided to go together so that they could finish everything in time. But because they were more experienced, they didn't want to work together. They just said, I'm going to do this because I know better. So they created a huge time wasting. They wasted so much time. On the other hand, me and the other children, we didn't know what to do. But we cooperated together and we did things much more faster than the others who were more experienced. So at the end, we understand that working together is much better, faster, and enjoyable to have an experience.
I went to my grandfather's house. I was like always alone in my room and or with the iPad. And suddenly one day my grandmother fell sick and he had to be in the hospital. So in that moment I realized that people they are not permanent, nobody's permanent, so you have
It was like 6 years ago in a physical education class when I was talking with some of my supposed friends, and then, with no sense, one of my friends put me down in the ground and started hitting me, and I was thinking like, why? What is happening? Why am I receiving this? And then I